Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Write an Adventure, our ongoing live stream where we're creating a completely custom campaign in real time. I'm RJ Kerr, your host, and today we're going to be picking up where we left off with our historical deep dive social encounter. Uh, this is one that is part of that node structure style we've been doing, but let's go ahead and back up here. If you are new to the server, I'm sorry, I should say new to the channel, if you haven't been caught up on what we've done so far, or this is the first time you've been able to catch us live, let me go ahead and get you updated on what we've done so far, so that you're not lost. So as I said, we're creating a completely custom campaign with its own unique domain of dread. And to do that, we've been using a couple tools to help give ourselves some structure and some things to work with. Think of them as things from which to deviate, right? And plans from which to deviate. And so we started with a story circle structure. And this is a fiction structure for plotting. We're not really using it to plot per se, more to help guide some of the rise and fall of the action throughout the adventure, and to help us kind of figure out where everything needs to fit for it to feel like a really dynamic story to our players. Um, so we've done a lot filling this out already. We have figured out how our characters enter into this domain of dread through a portal that opens up on the blood moon. We've talked about what kind of motivations would draw them in here willingly. We figured out where they land in a shanty town called Darkport on the edge of an inland sea. And we've discovered that this inland sea is a big part of this domain of dread. That it used to be the basin of a thriving metropolis that has now fallen into ruin and become flooded. We've also decided that there's an elemental villain within this domain who serves as the Dread Lord. And we're calling him Ovander. And we're still trying to figure out exactly how he plays into the overall adventure. And so we've been accumulating some ideas about his true form and his desires and his manifestations, and how that might influence the characters throughout. Uh, we figured out the very first adventure that occurs during this, where the characters are kidnapped and briefly enslaved and have to escape their captors, and in doing so, learn about the existence of a long lost artifact and discover that this artifact is probably their best chance of escape because it gives the wielder some sort of level of power over this domain of dread. And so now we're working on a part of the adventure where the characters, a part of the campaign, I should say, where the characters are getting proactive. They've got these clues, they've escaped, they're on their own, they've got some equipment back, and now they've got to go find this artifact. And so we're using a node structure style for that, where effectively we're creating these what I like to call investigative scenes, but in the structure they're called nodes. But we're creating these nodes or investigative scenes where the characters have the opportunity to find a variety of different clues. And each of those clues leads them to a different node or investigative scene. They can find some of them, they can find all of them, they can find none of them, and this still gives them threads to kind of follow and gives them a lot of agency to explore this world and to solve this mystery in their own style and way. But still giving us as dungeon masters some structure so that we can write some of these little mini adventures, these investigative scenes and nodes ahead of time, so we're not having to make them all up on the fly. So we've done a lot of work in here already. We've created a 5-room dungeon as a mini adventure for one of them. We have done a heist adventure using the 5 scene dungeon structure. We've done a complex social encounter that's all about negotiating with NPCs and their wants versus how well, charismatic, charming, and persuasive the characters can be, with a few other challenges thrown in there. And now we're working on a very um, well, we're working on what started as a very simple encounter, in which the early on in this node structure, where the characters have the opportunity to consult with, effectively a historian, somebody who has some knowledge about this artifact, and learn some clues that can lead them along in their investigations. Um, but of course, in the dynamic nature of this channel, we we got creative with it. We found some cool stuff that we want to toss in there, and we want to expand it. And now it is not just a social encounter, but it has a whole little side quest associated with it that we're going to start building out and shaving away at. So, with that in mind, this is a interactive channel, so please feel free to jump in the chat, give me your comments, thoughts, opinions, ideas, anything else that you want to toss in there. You guys come with some incredibly creative stuff as we move through this. So love hearing from you all. Please don't be shy, even if you're new to the channel, to jump in the comments or jump in the streaming chat and yeah, give me your ideas, give me your thoughts. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and share my screen and let's get rocking and rolling. First off, we got a few comments in the chat already. Oh, hey, hello everybody. Good to see you, Ben. Good to see Mr. Max, Fantasy Animal Vegan. Always a pleasure to have you guys here. Always a good time. And a couple of our regulars here. So, as I said, we were working on building out this encounter. And so we had come up with the idea that the characters have the opportunity to interview and befriend a longtime resident of this domain of dread who has some important historical knowledge that may help them along on their journey. And we made a list of the kinds of clues that, or I should say, some of the investigative scenes that we want the clues in this situation to kind of point to. And one was a Wizard Tower adventure we haven't written yet. One was the Sea Shanty Siren, which is that complex social encounter we created. The other was the Treasure Hunter's Dungeon, which was the 5-room dungeon that we made. And so we started building out the role play details of this character, which we had just been calling the Old Salt to start. And we still haven't settled on a few things. We haven't come up with, haven't decided exactly what his stat block will be, but we have come up with his name, Elias Bracken, and he's an elderly dwarf. We've given him a description, including, he has an eye patch, a peg leg, and facial scars. We have come up with the idea that he was a monster hunter previously, and that he's located in Darkport. He craves clues about this monster's whereabouts and its condition. His ambition is the destruction of this creature, which we are now going to have to create because we got super creative with it, and nothing now will fit the stat block for us to just reskin. We came up with some values for him to kind of guide some of his interaction with the players. We came up with a secret that he keeps that, if the characters can kind of figure out, they might have some leverage over him. Let me give him a little bit of history. We said that again, that he was a former monster hunter, that his mind was lost in the pursuit of this obsession, kind of a Moby, kind of a Captain Ahab for Moby Dick kind of deal here. And we also came with the idea that part of what's kind of driven him insane about this is that nobody believes that this monster is real. He's the only one that believes it exists. And of course, it absolutely exists in this world because we're going to create a whole side quest with it. But we had to come up with some reasons as to why that might work. And we kicked around a few ideas. The passage of time with no truth, that the wizard in the Wizard Tower manipulated the memories of the townsfolk, because we kind of settled on the idea that this wizard in the Wizard Tower was perhaps responsible for the creation of this monster. That's going to be a fun adventure to write. We're going to have to create a lot of new monsters for that one. Considering we've sort of figured out this wizard just creates random ass creatures, which is kind of a cool vibe for that. It adds some flavor to that. I digress, though. And then we also came with this idea that this monster has an innate effect that makes those who see it forget it, but that for some reason Elias is immune. And maybe it's the hide armor that he's made, maybe it's the fang that he holds on to and clutches compulsively. But there's some reason that he's the only one who can remember it, having seen it. And then we also started working on some little plugs for old stories that Elias might tell, so that when he can kind of when he veers off track from the conversation, and that's one of the challenges of this social interaction, is that he's focused on his obsession, and so the characters really have to keep him on track to get the clues out of him that they're looking for. So we need to fill out some more of these old stories. We need to come up with his stat block, and then we need to work on creating this monster and the side quest that follows. And I have some ideas about that, specifically the creation of the side quest about hunting this monster. Because I think that, personally, my opinion, is that your standard sort of formula for a monster hunt is a little flat. The idea that you learn about this creature, then you go out into its environment and use survival checks to track it, and then you find it and you battle it, and end of story, you're done. Um, I mean, if you're looking for a very quick kind of side thing, perhaps part of a larger adventure, that's fine. But as a standalone side quest, I'm not a huge fan of how that plays out. I think that it's one, very formulaic, and two, I don't think it offers enough challenges. It's really just one skill check and a combat encounter. So, one of the things that I like to do, and I will admit that um, this is an idea that um, this is an idea that's been taken by multiple people from effectively the Witcher stories. And that's where destroying this monster isn't as simple as fighting it and killing it, because somebody would have done that at some point. That there's some special thing that is needed to weaken it before it can be destroyed. Um, and we can lean into that idea to come up with some sort of highs and lows, multiple encounters of the monster, moments where the characters are forced to flee and escape, and then ultimately can figure out uh, you know, this key, this item, or this material, or what have you, this weakness, and utilize it to have a final confrontation with this creature. Um, so, I kind of like that structure there, and yeah, I like I said, I kind of like that structure there, and so it's kind of what I think we should lean into there. But of course, as always, if you have other ideas, not just for that, for any of this, please jump in the chat. And it looks like we've already got one here, where Ben Elder says, "I like the idea someone said last time. It's the fact that he holds the fang for the creature that lets him remember it. Um, think might have been." Mr. Max, sorry, Wednesday was a while ago. Yeah, and it wasn't even Wednesday we worked on this. We did a whole extra episode of Wednesday. It was a week ago that we worked on this. So we're all getting back into the groove here. And yes, Mr. Max confirms it was indeed him, and I agree with that. And I actually really like that idea. It's kind of got me thinking um, that uh, it kind of got me thinking in our downtime here about if it's just that fang, if you need specifically a fang for the monster, you just need some sort of part of the creature to remember it. Um, and I like the idea that you just need a part of the creature to remember it, especially if we're going to have multiple encounters with this creature throughout this little mini adventure, this little side quest. Um, and I was kind of thinking, I kind of get the image that, like, you'd have one character who would hold on to this fang or something like that. Um, and would and they one character in the group who would have this fang, or some other token of the creature, and it would allow them to remember it, but the only one in the group who could remember it after seeing it, until they engaged with it, and they either cut off scales, or they got rid of another fang, or a talon, or spilled some blood, and they've got to paint themselves with this blood a little bit here so the rest of the party can remember them, and make it kind of a grittier sort of interaction. um, so this moment to kind of engage with it, even though they haven't learned its secret yet. So again, just kind of spitballing here, but those are some of the things that you guys suggested, and really got my gears turning over the last week here. Ben Elder says one of the ideas here is the creature is a clone, and unless the magic device that birthed it is destroyed, it will keep being respawned, maybe bigger and meaner each time as it does. Is it improved, like Syndrome and the I think that probably in the Incredibles. That's uh, actually kind of a really cool idea, um, because yeah. Ooh, okay. So I can envision a situation where your players think this is going to be a standard sort of monster hunt. They go to the adventure, or they go to the environment. They roll their survival check. They go, they fight this monster, they kill it. Hooray, everybody wins. They go to the local town to rest and recover, and this thing comes back in the middle of the night and wreaks havoc. Only, like you said, it's stronger and meaner and badder this time in some capacity. And maybe they defeat it again. But now they know that there's either more of them or it's coming back, and they've got to go into, go back into the woods or go back into the swamps or go back into, the tidal pools or wherever the hell it is, and find the source of it. Maybe they go hunting what they think is a nest and is actually the cave or the hole or the cache or whatever where this magical clone jar is held or clone jars are held. Um, Gosh, could you imagine if they like track this back and they go into like an old cave and there's like just hundreds of these clone jars that spawn these things out there? It like the scene from Alien when they come out of the in the beginning they come out of the ship and they go into the alien vessel and they just see all of those eggs just as far as the eye can see in the hold. Uh, I could see that being kind of a final sort of scene when the characters eventually find the base of this thing, and it could make for a cool final encounter where they start kind of hatching these clones, kind of start hatching out of these clone jars as the characters race to like destroy as many of them they can before the creatures come out and start to kind of potentially overwhelm them or threaten to overwhelm them, I should say. Um, yeah, that just I think that'd be a cool scene in my brain. I think that'd be fun. Mr. Mex says maybe the whole party would need to eventually have pieces of the beast to see it. Those who don't have any pieces have to fight blindly. Would that require too many missed interactions with the beast? Um, no, I don't think that would be a problem intrinsically. In fact, it could really make for kind of a cool dynamic because you could be in a fight where the characters are, uh, you know, where let's say party of four like we've got here, right? At the beginning, only one of them has this piece of the beast to see it, and so they're the only one who can see it. And now they got to direct everybody else in the party, like it's over there. Shoot your bow over there, fire the fireball over there. Although I mean, these second level characters, they're not going to have fireball, but you get what I mean. And so where they're having to injure it and then use an action to utilize, maybe blood that it drops or something like that to have a character go over there and smear it on their face, and now they can see it too, and now it's just two members of the party. That actually could make a really dynamic combat encounter. So yeah, Mr. Mix, I would highly recommend something like that. And that also loops back to Ben's idea about making this monster kind of scalable, how it comes back and it's a little bit stronger every single time. Because, one of the difficulties with that iteration on the surface of it would be, well, we got to do a stat block for each and every one of these iterations. And now we don't know how many there's going to be. And so we got to make like 5 different monsters, and that's a pain. But instead, what we could do is we could use the same stat block and have a series of abilities that it gains as it goes through. So it doesn't actually become more powerful in terms of the fight. It just becomes more difficult to slay. So, like, it might add resistances, it might add immunities, it might become invisible, under certain conditions, like Mr. Mech suggests. And we can come up with, 5, 6, 7, whatever of those features, and not have to create this full stat block every single time. So I really, really like that idea. Um, I I really like the blind fighting thing. There's very few situations where the whole party is blinded to something, and usually invisibility gets used as a like, well, nobody can see it, and now we have a whole round of them wondering where the creature's gone and that kind of deal. Which I mean can be fun in certain circumstances, but I think this makes a really dynamic element to it. Um, Let's see here. Mr. Mix says maybe each ability is gained would based off of what the party has. Pick up abilities similar to the classes it's hunting. Um, that's not necessarily intrinsically a bad idea. The the catch to that one, right, is you need to know who your party is then when you're writing it. Which if you were writing this for your home group in real time, you would know that. So it would be a lot easier for you to go, well, we got a paladin, we've got a cleric, we've got a wizard, and we've got a rogue in this group here. And so what we know these classes are, and we can kind of come up with those little things for each one of them, and work them into this monster kind of ahead of time. But since we're writing for a group that we don't know what their composition is going to be, that would be really difficult for us to do in this context. So not a bad idea at all for your home game. Difficult to do though when you're writing for other people, or when you're writing for an adventure where you don't know what the party formation is going to be yet. So yeah, again, good idea. A little harder for us to utilize here in this context, but still a really good one. Hey, Orth, good to see you. All right, so before we get completely off topic here, let's go ahead and let's put another heading in here. What did we say? That's heading 2. That's a heading 1. Okay, cool. Let's put another heading in here because we're going to start building out our side quest here, and then we will add it to its own page over here. We'll say side quest monster hunt. I'm going to build it here now just because we've got a lot of our details here, and then we'll cut and paste it over to that. We want to do a different page for it in our adventure list here, because the characters may not engage with this side quest right away. They may come back to it later, and we would just want to make it easy for ourselves to go back and find it without being like, oh crap, which adventure was it in again? And so we could just look it up on the side. Let's see here. Let's see, monster hunt, and we're just going to jot down a couple ideas, and then I think we probably want to finish up our old salt before we get too far into this. So we can finish up Elias, because he doesn't have that many more details that we need to put in here. But let's not lose the thoughts we've come up with so far. The PCs agree to hunt TK monster, but there are complications. Monster is actually a series of clones that activate when the current clone is slain. Each clone gains new abilities, making it harder to face than the last. And then we're going to put that, and we're going to say things like invisible to anyone who doesn't possess part of the monster. Resistances, immunities, etc. You can come with that stuff. And when we say things like immunities, we don't have to say, we don't have to say like, oh, it's immune to slashing damage, it's immune to fire damage, or things like that. We can say it's like immune to the charm condition now. It's immune to being stunned, or something along those lines. Which might be an easy way back to your comment, Mr. Mex. Lost my train of thought here. Yeah, back to your comment, Mr. Mix, about customizing some of its new abilities to the party. That might be an easy way to kind of do that on the fly if you wanted to, where you simply make it, if it's, if there's a wizard in the party, well, it's resistant to arcane magic now, so it gets advantage on those saving roll, on those saves, or half damage on the, the attack rolls, or you split that up and make that 2 different abilities. Maybe you've got a monk of the group, it turns out it's immune to stun now. Those kinds of things. This is, and of course you don't just throw that in on the first encounter, that it learns that with each successive encounter, and so it becomes kind of adapting to that party. Again, making it more challenging for those specific characters. So that's what I would do if I was adapting it to a group of a known structure. Okay, so before we get too far off from good old Elias here, let's finish him up um, so that we are completely done with this particular social encounter. Um, yeah, so that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves and leave gaps. Um, so you're looking back at the chat. Mr. Mix says, I hope the party doesn't spend all that reward money after each kill of the monster. There probably isn't even any reward money since nobody remembers it exists. Like the reward is probably the treasure from Elias, um, like his hide armor or something along those lines. And then Mr. Rice says, so wizard kills with fire. It gets resistance to fire. Yeah, that, like I said, exactly. It's kind of what I'm talking about here. That if you were going to customize it to a particular group, that's an easy kind of way to go about it. Um, without making it insanely difficult, but also you know, kind of flagging to the group, to your party, that it's evolving, because you very much would have the situation, right, where the wizard, kills it with fire the first time. Everybody goes, yeah, fire's effective against it. We're going to keep using fire to kill it. And they have the next encounter with it. And now the fire isn't effective against it anymore. Now now it's resistant or it's immune to fire or one of those things. And so now you have this sort of like, oh crap moment with your players, where now they're kind of scrambling to figure this out. And they have this like, well, he wasn't resistant to fire before. And as the DM, you get to smile and go, I know. Uh, something's changed. And they've got to think on their feet and come up with a new strategy now. So that's exactly the kind of thing I would do to customize it to a particular group. So Ben says maybe one ability could be it howls and summons lower tier clones as a backup. It could. Let's see here. Do summons potentially. I don't know that I would make it a lower tier clone as a backup, because then again we're making 2 stat blocks, right, as opposed to just making 1 stat block. But I would have it absolutely able to summon some other less difficult monster of some kind, or some element of nature, or something that we can take a stat block that exists and either reskin or just tweak a little bit to save ourselves some work. Because while it is tempting to create custom stat blocks for all the monsters in your adventure, that is a buttload of work. And to be honest, your players really won't notice in a lot of cases if you just reskin them. I mean, so don't make yourself do more work than you need to, but don't shy away from doing things like this when it really does call for a unique element. Okay, so before we digress too much, because we're already half hour into this, and we have not worked on Elias at all. So let's knock out some of the things that we need for him. So we don't need to come up with a monster name yet, because we're going to come up with that as part of the Monster Hunt story as we develop this creature. But we, I think, have kind of let's see here. We can fill in some of the gaps. So we figured out that his name is Elias. Elias Bracken is a former monster hunter. His mind was lost in the pursuit of his obsession. I'm going to say partially because no one else believes the beast exists. And then we're going to say that due to, I should say, however, the truth is that TK Monster does exist, but all those who don't possess a piece of the monster immediately forget its existence once it leaves their sight. Cool. And that means that we can delete some of this other thing here. We could say Elias has never forgotten it due to a fang he took during the first encounter with the creature. Cool. So we got a little bit of kind of formalized our history here. Now, we need to come up with a monster name for it. Absolutely. But we'll come with that during the monster hunt. We need to come up with some old stories for him, but we also need a stat block for him, right? And now that we originally were talking about like a commoner, and then we were talking about a druid or a druid bandit combo. And now that we've kind of started to flesh him out here with his monster hunter idea, I think something closer along the lines of a scout or a scout captain or a warrior of some kind fits the bill here a little bit better. Of course, he has an eye patch and he's got a peg leg, and so we want to kind of maybe modify that stat block just a little bit to kind of give him a feel. And again, I won't say again. One thing we should be aware of here when we're creating this out is that there is a strong likelihood that the characters are going to go, "Hey, Elias, you should come with us to fight this creature." And Elias, because of the obsession we've given him and his objective and ambition here, is going to go, "Hell yeah, I should come help you kill the monster." So we want to do two things. One, we don't want to make Elias some super powerful entity, um, because because then we're going to end up in a combat situation where really Elias kills this monster and the players are just kind of there, right? We want the players' help, the characters' help, to be absolutely vital to the situation if Elias comes with them. And we want to make Elias a little bit unique here, based off of some of his history. And so we, want to maybe account for the eye patch. Maybe we want to account for the peg leg. Maybe we want to account for some of his memories and some of his time-honored knowledge of this creature, that kind of deal. And we can do that by just putting little comments with the stat block here without having to create something completely new. Let's see here. Mr. Mix. Hold on, let's back up here. It looks like I've missed a couple chats here. And in regard to, howls and some Ben Elder's suggestion that howls and summon some lower tier clones. Mr. Mex is maybe nearby wildlife, maybe it mimics a wolf and they come. That's a possibility. We certainly should kind of look at the CRs and all that kind of thing for that to kind of figure out how this works. Because we're going to want to figure out too, since it's a whole little side quest, what its what tier of, or I should say, what levels are we expecting the characters to kind of go and engage with this. Then Mr. Mix, I'm sorry. Then Ben Elder says, anyone played Fallout 4, Far Harbor? I'm picturing those fog crawler things for this beast. I have not played that one, but yeah, I mean, frankly, one of my suggestions when you're kind of trying to come up with this stuff is get out of the genre you're writing in. We're writing in fantasy, right? So if you want something that's a little more unique, go check out sci-fi like Fallout. Go check out westerns. Go check out horror movies, all that kind of stuff. And and steal from those. That'll give you cool little things that are atypical in fantasy settings. The Mr. Mex says maybe Elias is a cultist that left the mage in the tower cult, and he sent the monster after him. Yeah, we could do something like that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That would add some backstory. It conflicts with the image of Elias that I've started kind of crafting in my head about this, where, he's been a monster hunter for a while and that he's hunted other monsters, as we've talked about. And now this has become his obsession, the one that he wants to kill. And so I don't necessarily picture that the monster is after him specifically, but I definitely think that they have kind of a history and anonymity to them. And so I think I don't think he necessarily has as close, at least in my version, in my picturing of him, I don't think he has as close a relationship with the wizard as having been one of his acolytes at one point. Which again, because we've talked about not giving him magical power, and cultists, he might have some sort of access to magic. If he's a cultist, that kind of deal. I guess we wouldn't have to have that in the stat block. You can go back and forth. But I think that that just chafes a little bit against the character that we've created here. Um, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Um, so Mr. Mex says he was hunting the monsters and knowingly the mage was using the trophies for his research. You know, we could do something like that. Um, hmm. Hmm. Let's consider this. Let's tell you what, because some of the stat blocks here are going to be determined by the challenge rating for this particular quest, right? Because Elias is only going to come with them for this. Um, I mean, for this side quest, it's not like he's going to join the party perpetually. That's just not what he's after. And even then, he might not come with them. The characters might decide they don't want this, crazy old coot tagging alongside with him, especially if they can't trust him around the monster potentially. And that's one of the modifications I could see giving him is that, animosity, that if he sees this creature, he has to attack it, he has to charge in. Biddle says maybe a ranger stat block, or maybe when he sees the beast, he needs to pass a wisdom save before going into rage and charging straight at it. Hey, you were ahead of me since there is a delay on this channel, and I was just saying that, and you already typed it. So yeah, uh, that's a cool kind of touch there, and I like that. Um, so let's look at okay. Again, we are getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit in that we're just throwing out ideas for stat blocks, and we need to calibrate this to our side adventure, as we know, or as we've now discovered. So we know that we're writing this whole thing for 4 PCs. The Monster Hunt, we could write it for second level PCs since this is an early encounter. If we want to do that, they're going to follow it up right away. I would be tempted to write this more for uh, third level characters. So that it's a little difficult for second level characters to go tackle. It's right in the money for third level. A little bit easier for fourth level characters if they kind of wait that long and come back to it. And we can always adjust the difficulty kind of as they go. So I would say we write this for third level characters, but just depending on when you want this sort of thing to happen. You could write it for any level you wanted. I mean, Elias could laugh in their faces and tell them, they're not strong enough to battle the beast yet. Come back after you've seen a few more fights yourself or something along those lines and suggest that they need to get stronger. If you wanted to say, make it a 5th level encounter or something along those lines. I don't like to toss out threads that the characters can't follow immediately. So level 3 sounds pretty good to me. So with that in mind, we are going to want something that is a stat block that fits well into that point in the character's development, right? So let's go ahead and go to our Dungeon Master's Guide 2024, which I've got up in the other screen over here, and let's check out the combat encounter building section and get a kind of a vibe check for the XP budget. Third level characters, right? So again, you can follow along on your own. This is 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, as I said. We go to the XP budget per character chart. And third level characters, low is 150, moderate is 225, high is 400. I would probably put Elias somewhere in a CR stat block that falls between low and moderate. So between 150 XP and 225 XP. And I think that means that he's probably a challenge rating 1, if I am remembering this correctly, but we can certainly look that up. Sources, source books, monster manual. And then parts of stat block, all the way down to challenge ratings. And yeah, so we're looking at a challenge rating of a CR1 kind of stat block for this. So that's going to kind of narrow our focus on what we're looking for. So we can simply go to our game rules section on D&D Beyond, or you can go to monsters by challenge rating in the monster manual, which actually, we're going to use the sort function with the monsters in D&D Beyond. So we're going to set the challenge rating to 1, a range of 1-1, and we're going to pick humanoid because it doesn't make sense for him to be anything else. And there's a million of those, so I'm gonna reduce this further, and I'm going to make the new monster manual, the 2024 monster manual, the source we're going to use for that. That maybe puts this down a little too low, or a little too narrow, I should say, because it only comes up with 2 options: a pirate and a spy. And I don't think a spy fits. Well, actually, it could. So I'm looking at the stat block here, and a spy gets things like it has a poison short sword. It has hand crossbows, which is also poisoned. And then it gets bonus actions, like it gets cunning actions, so it can take the dash, disengage, or hide action as bonus actions, which means it's something that we could reskin here, and he could be relatively spry for his for his age and his condition, able to move quickly, disengage out of fights, hide easily. And maybe he's developed some of these kinds of skills here. So we could certainly reskin him that way. And then, he's got things like, it has a climb speed of 30 feet. That kind of fits with this monster hunter, climbing trees, getting in deer blinds, that kind of deal could be interesting. So we could use that. Shouldn't get myself off just by the name. The other one is pirate. And this one, let's see here, has multi-attack, makes 2 dagger attacks, can replace one of them with a enthralling panache. Enthralling panache is a wisdom saving throw. On a fail, the creature is charmed, or the target is charmed until the pirate's next turn. I don't like the pirate stat block for him. Don't like the pirate stat block. So I didn't think I was going to say this, but let's go spy for this. That's a real easy one. And that actually kind of fits with some simple reskinning. You could say spy with the following modifications. So I really like Ben's idea about him, needing to make these wisdom saving throws or something along those lines to avoid just charging straight at this creature, just being blinded with rage. So let's do something like that. Let's say we'll call that ability Animosity, and we will say when at the start of each turn, the start of each of Elias's turns in which he can see TK monster, he must make a DC X Wisdom saving throw. And then we say failure. Elias must use his turn to charge up to his full movement. Actually, we'll say, let's make this a little easier. Must use his turn to get as close to TK monster as possible, and attack. So whether he attacks with the short sword or whether he attacks with his hand crossbow, and we could change out things like the short sword or the hand crossbow. It's not going to make that big of a difference in the damage if we go, hey, it's a long sword, or it's or it's a light crossbow or a short bow or something along those lines instead. I would leave the short bow in there. The hand crossbow does seem kind of out of this this rangery kind of character we're kind of trying to create here. And so we might change that to like a short bow, which actually I think is the same damage unless they've changed that, is the same damage as a hand crossbow. So let's just double check that real quick. Weapons. Short bow. Yeah, same damage. Okay, cool. Cool. So we'll do that instead of the hand crossbow, I think. Unless, unless you guys disagree. It just seems more on point for me, or to my mind here. So let's say, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I haven't notified what doesn't success. So success, Elias. This is going to kill me. Okay. I'm not sure why the hell it's doing that. All right. Elias can act normally on his turn. Cool. Replace hand crossbow with short bow. And I'm literally just going to copy and paste the attack damage there, just so that there's no confusion about like it's still poisoned. It still does the same amount here. And I'll check the range on that real fast before I forget. The range on a short bow is 80, 320. Cool. All right. What other features do you think we should give him here? Should we change his movement speed since he's got the peg leg thing here, or do we not want to worry about that? We can go either way on that. It may not affect him very much. It may affect him a little bit. It might hurt to walk on it. Prosthetics are not always the most comfortable thing to wear. So we might do something along those lines if we wanted to. What are you guys' thoughts? Any other additions or modifications we should make to this stat block, or any other features we should give him? Something that occurs to me, and I'm willing to bet will probably occur to you guys shortly here because you're so often ahead of me in this. Is he should probably have advantage when using to make survival checks to stalk this creature. He should also probably have proficiency in survival checks as well. And so one of the things we can do perhaps is the spy stat block gets deception, which I don't think makes a whole lot of sense in the terms of this particular character here. So we can swap that out with survival. We could say has, we'll say skill changes, deception plus, well, we'll say +3. He could be charismatic. Why not? Deception +3, and then we'll say survival. And we'll say, +4. Why not? Because he's got a +2 to wisdom, and then he's got the proficiency bonus there as well. The deception one comes from just pulling out his proficiency bonus in that, so that changes that easily. And then we can say, let's see here. Let's say weapon changes, just to keep that consistent. And let's see here. Obsessed hunter. Elias has advantage to wisdom. We should say Elias has advantage to all checks, or I should say to checks to track or spot TK monster. Then that gives us a little more wiggle room in that. Let's see. Let's see here. Ben Older says maybe -10 movement for speed due to leg. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking here. Yeah, and so we change his movement and his climbing speed, either -10 or -5. I was thinking -10 along the same lines as well first, but then it occurs to me that makes him like zombie speed, and he's probably a little faster than that. So maybe we do -5. Because I mean, the 2014 dwarfs, for example, had 25 movement speed, so that might put him in line with that, as opposed to the 2024 that have 30. So let's do -5 to each of those. So movement affected because of the pain. His peg leg causes him. Elias, his movement is reduced by 5 feet. We can just say reduced by 5 feet. We don't have to specify that it's both for speed and climb. That's simple enough. And then let's see here. Ben Elder says advantage to intimidating checks due to the eye patch and scars, maybe disadvantage to perception for the same reason. I like the intimidation thing. I really do like the intimidation thing. And so instead of deception, let's give him intimidation. I guess we still want to put the note that we're reducing deception. +3, +3, and actually it should be a +5 to intimidation because we want a proficient in that. So he's got a 3 to his charisma. Got a +3 to his charisma, and then he's got proficiency bonus of +2. And this is a great example of why you don't have to be like a really charming character to have high charisma. To your point, Ben, like he's probably an intimidating figure. Like this is a hardcore dude. And so that charisma really measures kind of the force of your personality as opposed to, how, you know, how glib or how smooth or how attractive you are. So we can have this character who's ostensibly scarred and battered and kind of grim, and give him a relatively high charisma in this case because he's just got that, like he's got a sledgehammer of a personality. Hence why we give him this bonus to intimidation. I really like that, Ben. That's a really cool idea. Um, Now, for the comment about the disadvantage to perception, um, I don't disagree with that. One of the okay, we could absolutely do that. There's two reasons why I don't want to do that for him. One is simple that it would then impact his advantage to being able to just be able to spot the monster. It would effectively make it a straight roll as opposed to a roll with disadvantage. And we kind of want, I think, my feel for him is that like he kind of would be keen eyed in spotting this particular monster. Um, the other thing to keep in mind here is more of a social thing when you're dealing with your players. Like there, you don't want there to be every body modification causes a negative sort of impact, because then that can come across kind of as ableism at your table. Depending who you're playing with, it might be fine with with some of your players, but since we're kind of writing for everybody here, if we're going to reduce his speed because of his peg leg, then we probably don't want to impact him due to his eye patch. If we were going to impact him due to his eye patch, we probably don't want to impact him due to his peg leg, because we don't want to send the message that he is deficit because of his because of these injuries. Instead, he is just adapting differently because of these injuries. Um, so in that case, for those two reasons, I really don't want to give him disadvantage on perception checks. Um, but again, that depends on who you're playing with. There's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but that could be touchy for some players. Um, Carrying on, so we're almost wrapping up here. We're almost out of time, so let's go ahead and finish up the last couple comments here, and then we'll close it in for the night. So Mr. Rex says a lower speed could be good and make it for the peg leg. Yep, absolutely, I agree. And then maybe he has a wound from the first encounter and it reacts somehow if it's some distance from him. That's a possibility. That I think is something that we will need to figure out about the monster itself, because if the wound that it inflicts on him is reactive in some kind of context, then it needs to be reactive if the characters receive a wound from this monster. So that's something we're going to have to figure out in the stat block, and then come back and add that in if that's something we want to do on the monster itself. It's a good idea. Let's see here. Lingering wounds. We'll put the comment down there to save it. It's certainly something to toy around with. Okay, fantastic. So with that, I'm really kind of happy with the progress we made today. We've got some great ideas for a side quest that runs through that the characters can kind of diverge into and kind of break up, get some reprieve from the main storyline. We've done some cool stuff in terms of modifying a standing stat block so that we don't have to create everything from scratch, and still make it a very unique character. We still need to fill out some of these kind of old story bullet points for Elias to wander back to when they're talking to him. But we can brainstorm those next time. And so, functionally, we've got a completely playable character here that we'd be able to grab Elias and have some really kind of in-depth conversations between him and the PCs, which is what we want in a social encounter. We want that ability. So very cool. Very happy with this. With that being said, let's go ahead and put a pin in this. We are going to pick up again on Wednesday at our normal time. So with our next episode, and I'm pretty sure we're going to do a bonus episode on Friday. I'm not going to commit to that yet. I need to double check a couple things, but I'm planning on trying to make that work. So with that, thank you again for joining us today. It's always a blast talking to you guys and hearing your ideas and talking this out with you guys. This unstructured creative time is just so good. I really enjoy it. So thank you for all your thoughts and ideas and opinions and suggestions. You guys are coming up with some great stuff. I look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday. And as always, if you've enjoyed my content, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. All that stuff helps the channel grow. And if you want to jump into one of my tables, come check me out at startplaying.games/GM/RJ Kerr. I've got, I posted recently the one shot that I ran for Mr. Mix, Jonathan Frost, and Orth on there. And I'll post that one again in a couple weekends. So if you want to hop in one of those and check out the one that we picked apart, that Crucible the Fourfold Path, that's a good opportunity to do so. All right. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you all on Wednesday.